In episode 2 of our Will of Africa tour of the Kgalagadi Transfrontier Park, we explore Mabuasehube a bit further. On our first game drive, we bumped into a pride of lions and sat with them for the entire morning. We couldn't wait for the next chapter.
My name is Will Jansen from Will of Africa Adventures. We do bespoke safaris focusing on photography, and we very often also look at new environments, new places where we can actually create memories, like we are memory smiths.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Doyle, and I'm a professional guide and a conservationist. The reason behind coming on this trip was that Ironman was very keen to start incorporating a conservation and ecological element into their 4x4 trips. And so that's essentially my role on this trip, is to perhaps interpret a lot of the stuff that we see.
Welcome to Mabua campsite number 3. It's a beautiful campsite. There's some long drops here and a nice A-frame where everybody's going to have dinner tonight. We're going to have a quick lunch as well today. And then this is the pan here at the back, a beautiful, stunning view, which will probably be epic tonight with the sunset. This is the A-frame. Very, very cool. And we're gonna have lunch and then head off to find some more lions.
So for lunch today, we've got some bread rolls, cracker breads, cream cheeses, cold meats and drivels. And then we're going to prepare a lovely 3-course meal for tonight. Cream of tomato soup with avocado and feta cheese. Frying a sirloin steak together with some roasted carrots and braaibroodjies. And for dessert, we're going to have a lovely Nutella chocolate mousse. We're currently at Mabua Pan, campsite number 3, and looking forward to another 2 nights staying at the Pan here.
We are on our second game drive. I'm not sure where we're headed, but we had some incredible sightings this morning, and I've got a driver this time so I can properly film. Thank you, Mick. I really appreciate it. For you leaving your cruiser at camp and coming to drive for me so I can film. Thank you, Mick.
I don't know what to say to you.
Why?
I have an overwhelming urge to be facetious, but I think it's inappropriate. So.
Why?
I'm just joking. We're going back to the Pan where we had a proper lion sighting this morning. That was fantastic.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
I must tell you though, Lorraine's knowledge, I wish I had the time to take in what she has. You know, we travel through these places as overlanders and as tourists and as families that just come here for holiday and whatnot. And really, at the end of the day, we see, sometimes if we're lucky, we see a lot of things, but we just got no clue of the depth of what goes on here. It's just...
And how intertwined all the systems are. It's
all
just
of the
incredible.
Above, you just, you know, you pass through here for a couple of days and you had a fantastic Kgalagadi trip, but you haven't gotten to grassroots level of how it all sticks together and how it works, and it's a shame. Yeah, it is a shame. But in any case, we're doing well because we have Lorraine here, and she's you know, she's giving us as much information as she possibly can, which is great. How's this road, man?
Smile.
So deserts are important because within deserts you have high levels of what we call endemicity. And endemicity means that those are organisms that occur nowhere else on the planet. So particularly rich in these arid environments is your assemblage and your endemicity of reptiles. So if you are an ectotherm, commonly referred to as cold-blooded, you have a significant advantage in these environments because you can lower your energy demand when the temperature drops. So you don't need large quantities of food to sustain you, and therefore when the desert goes through a particularly arid period, or even daily with fluctuations in temperature, you can literally just go underground and stay there for whatever period of time is necessary. And so having these areas where you have these high levels of endemic creatures means that they are contributing to global biodiversity. And what we don't want to lose on the planet is biodiversity, because that is what gives us stability in the landscape, including our stability and existence into the future. So essentially what we've got here is scat, which essentially is carnivore droppings. So you never touch this with your hands because obviously it will contain blood, hair, and as a result of that, some really very unpleasant microbes. The high white concentration in this is indicative of a very high concentration of calcium, which suggests that this is from hyenas because they have the ability to actually crush bone and digest it. So lion scat will look very similar, probably a little bigger than this, and also unlikely to be in what we call this a latrine. So this has been utilized by multiple animals over a period of time. What's also really interesting about this is that in areas where you have tortoises will actually come and feed on this hyena scat to obtain calcium for their shells. So glad I don't have to get my vitamins that way. But yeah, so it's amazing how everything is interlinked. Just behind me in the tree here, we've got a little nest. It looks like a pile of grass that's just been stuffed into a tree. And essentially what this is it's a little bird called a blue waxbill, tiny little bird. And what it does is it's really clever because this tree is armed with some really, really nasty thorns. And so it makes its nest deep in one of these thorn trees because it makes it very difficult for things like a Cape cobra, which might want to prey on eggs or chicks, to actually get in there. Because obviously if the reptile, the snake, tries to get in there, it's probably going to get injured. So it's a really good deterrent. And in some areas, these guys have taken it one step further. And if they can find a paper wasp nest, they'll actually construct the nest in a thorn tree close to a paper wasp nest as an added layer of protection, because the wasps will sting anything that comes within sight. But interestingly, it has never been observed them actually stinging the birds themselves. Plants and animals have adapted to these environments. And for example, plants, if you look at the trees that you see when you visit the Kalahari, you'll see that none of them have very large leaves. And the reason for that is that when you have a large surface area of leaf, there's a large area from which water can evaporate. So by reducing the size of your leaves into fine little feathers that you find on your thorn trees, although actually you've increased the overall surface area by making them smaller, what has happened is that the stomata, which is where the water vapor is lost from, are on the top surface. And what happens is in the heat of the day, the leaves actually close shut like this. So they enable reduction in water loss. So that's one of the adaptations that some of these plants have had. Another is that a large portion of the plant is actually below the ground. So we'll have a large food storage organ underground and very little above ground, enough to photosynthesize, but basically keeping things stored underground.
Look, there's Zazu. He's finding it very weird because I'm eye level with him, because I'm on the Ironman. The sightings this afternoon, not great, but I believe we'll get some more sightings tomorrow. And we're running a time lapse quickly of the beautiful Kalahari sunset. The most beautiful sunsets are in the Kalahari, I believe. And we're gonna have a nice dinner tonight, and tomorrow morning early, we're going out again for a game drive. Good night, Zazu. Lekker slaap, bro.
Behind me is a shepherd's tree. These trees are kind of, in a way, the lifeblood of these arid environments. Not so much from a food perspective. Not much will actually eat the leaves, they're not very palatable, but it provides a lot of shade, and the temperature actually underneath them during the heat of the day can actually be like 2 or so degrees lower than the temperature outside. So very, obviously really important for a lot of animals. The only downside of that is there is a tick called a tampan tick, and they like burrowing in the sand or the soil underneath these. And so animals just need to be aware if they stay there too long, they're going to potentially have a lot of these ticks on them. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. The tree actually interestingly belongs to the family Caparaceae, which is the same family as commercial capers come from. But obviously the fruits on these are tiny, they're not designed for commercial use. What we've got here is we've got a lion that's heading up the road this way. So one of the ways that you know it's lion or a cat is that you have 3 lobes here at the back, in the back pad, which is typical of a cat. Dogs have only 2, as do hyenas. And also very round toes, no claw marks, because obviously cats, with the exception of cheetahs, have got fully retractile claws. So just in terms of aging tracks, it's actually quite difficult, but we had rain which lasted until the early hours of the morning, and if you look on some of these other areas here, you can actually see the tiny little pits from the raindrops, and we don't have any pits in this track. So it happened after the rain. There was also quite a lot of wind last night, and the edges of this track are still very crisp and defined, so it happened after that wind. We also have this car track going here. This car actually passed us probably half an hour ago or so. So not the definition here is not as crisp, but it is still crisp enough to say this was within the last few hours. Comparing these tracks to the ones that we looked at a little bit earlier, you can see these tracks are older because you can actually see the little indentations in them where the raindrops have fallen. And then going up the road, there are again these fresher tracks looking more like lioness, because there's also really small tracks there of the cubs. So this is part of the pride that we saw yesterday. And these tracks are going that way up the road. So older tracks here with raindrops in them, and then fresher tracks over there going up the road.
We headed back to camp, where Egan was cooking a major breakfast.
Good morning, Egan.
Morning, Dirk.
Where are the lions?
That away.
Okay. What are we having for breakfast?
So this morning we're doing a bacon, scrambled eggs, rations on the side, together with a mushroom and onion and tomato smoor and toast.
Look at this tomato, fresh, in the middle of the Kgalagadi. Okay?
After lunch, we went to look at some of the smaller sightings. Ground squirrels.
We've been seeing ground squirrels, really cute, charismatic little creatures. So they have these burrows which they dig underground, and that's essentially when it's really, really cold. You'll have an entire group of them that will literally disappear down here and pile on top of each other. Meerkat do the same thing. And then what they do when it gets really hot and they're above ground, they'll actually they have a flattened, a dorso-ventrally flattened tail, and they actually lift this tail over their bodies and kind of spread it, almost like an umbrella, to shade themselves from the heat of the sun. So yeah, very, very cute and a pretty clever adaptation.
They actually came closer to us. They were so comfortable to be in around our space. So we had some amazing shots of the squirrels foraging for food around the campsites. On our way back, we had an amazing sighting. It's either a juvenile spotted eagle owl or a white-faced owl. And it was so beautiful. He never opened his eyes, so we could never really get the color of his eyes. But what a beautiful, and he was so chilled. We all got so close to him, and being able to photograph him was actually spectacular.
One of my favorite things in the world is to see an owl in the day.
It's a cute little sleepy owl. I'm so sleepy, so sleepy.
Very cool.
From there onwards, we had a beautiful sunset with all the vehicles parked up at the ridge, and just really enjoy the quiet of an African sunset.
What do you think of this sunset?
Beautiful.
Nick, what do you think of the sunset?
I have no words.
Look at that. What do you think of the sunset?
It's a true African sunset. It's gorgeous.
Absolutely. Thank you for spotting out that owl.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad I did.
And what do you think of the sunset?
Yeah, it's magnificent. It's just, yeah, just beautiful Africa.
Frik.
She blows. Mooi einde van die dag. Hey, baie mooi.
Stunning.
Stunning, absolutely.
What do you think of the sunset?
Oh, absolutely beautiful. Have you actually turned around and have a look at yourself?
Yeah,
It's gorgeous.
What do you think?
About what?
The sunset.
Sunset's beautiful. The cars in the picture even better.
As we arrived at the Waterhole, I couldn't believe it. Brown hyena drinking water. And that was about 8 o'clock-ish. Beautiful light again, and it was just phenomenal. So we parked off quite some distance to get an anchor shot, and as we drove closer, the hyena exited left. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a close-up shot of the brown hyena, but it was beautiful to see. And it was a beautiful, healthy brown hyena.
And they're just such incredible creatures that you see so rarely, because wherever there's spotted hyenas in any number, they completely outcompete brown hyenas, so you just don't see them.
And at that same waterhole, we had secretary birds, we had springbok coming to drink water, jackals were hanging around, and then, oh boy, we had a show of note with all these Namakwa sand grouse coming in, land, fill the feathers, fly. Come in, land, fly. And that probably went on for about an hour.
And just watching how they drink, how the males go into the water to absorb water into their breast feathers to take back to possibly chicks that are somewhere. And yeah, just the noise they make, their chirping, the sound of their wings. So that was just really, really special.
In the next episode, we spend our last 2 nights in Mabuasehube and make our way to South Africa. Thank you so much for watching. If you do like the videos, please like and subscribe. Until next time.